Here we see the exposition of the entire show, as the main character Jason gives a monologue about his early life, moving through foster homes, and how playing football essentially saved him from his damaged life. This opening scene is very important to all following aspects of the show, as it explains how his injury landed him in the situation of homelessness, and it is the first background story the audience hears from the range of homeless characters. As a lighting choice, I thought that lighting only downstage right, where the character was standing, would increase the dramatics of his monologue, and almost make his speech seem like a stream of consciousness, separate from the reality occurring in the show. In an attempt to make this exposition as dramatic as possible, I added a strong front light so that the protagonist's shadow was visible on the back curtain. Shadows and silhouettes often come with a dramatic and expressive connotation, and that was a variable that I wanted to include in this opening scene. I think the sectional and strong front lighting really helped the audience focus on the monologue and understand that before he even began to speak, it would be an important speech. Although lighting is an art in the theater just as much as it is a practical need, I often made lighting choices to aid the audience's perception of the piece. Amelia and Jason have a heartfelt conversation upstage left, where Amelia reveals her identity, social links, and the reason she is now living on the street. In order for the audience's eyes to naturally draw towards this conversation and not be distracted by any other action on the stage, I dimmed all lights that were not pointing on those two characters almost to darkness. The character Winston is still present on stage. However, he is not involved in this conversation, and I did not want the audience to look at any of his insignificant movements while a significant conversation is occurring elsewhere on the stage. I also chose to darken the right part of the stage where Winston was, because it gives the illusion that the characters are farther apart than they physically are on stage. Winston is uninvolved with the conversation, and I wanted it to be as though he wasn't even within an earshot of what Amelia and Jason were saying. I think I effectively achieved that objective by dimming all the lights not on upstage left to almost complete darkness. When Buck runs back onto the stage with two other homeless characters, his post-traumatic stress disorder from the war is causing him to have delusions that the strangers are enemies and he needs to fight them. Due to the fact that all four primary characters plus two extras are present on stage, it is necessary that the entire stage be lit. However, the events that are occurring here are very serious, and the situation escalates into a dangerous one. In order to light every character on the stage but maintain a climatic feel, I used all of the front lights directly and heavily, with some blue downlights just for added tone. The heavy front lights illuminate the characters so heavily that they almost seem faded against a completely black backdrop. This staging and lighting really helps to translate the dramatic content of the scene, but is practical enough to have every character present be seen. In the final part of the show, Buck hits Amelia in the head and she collapses onto the ground. Winston is present for a few seconds as he delivers a line about how life is a card house that will tumble down eventually. As this line is being delivered, Jason is holding Amelia's body on the ground. I chose to illuminate Amelia and Jason completely, focusing both front and downlight exactly where they were downstage center. Winston is standing behind them and is slightly in the dark. I made the artistic choice not to eliminate Winston completely, because although his line is very important, I wanted his words to seem almost ominous and disconnected from Winston's physicality, almost as if he were a voice of reason, looking down on Amelia and Jason. I'm not sure if my purpose in leaving Winston in the darkness was as received by the audience as I had hoped, but the decision to do so was part of my creative process and decision-making when choosing the lighting plots for the show. So those were just 4 examples of how I used my creative process to make decisions about lighting in our devised theater piece, Card House. Overall, I think the creative decisions I made in lighting design not only enhanced the mood of the scenes, but also aided the audience in easily following the action that was occurring on stage. In theater, lighting design is an art, but it is also a necessity. And although the majority of my decisions for lighting design were made out of practicality, I did my best to be creative with the lighting and the staging.